This podcast is grinding right up against our working agreement of never mentioning company names or people's names. Yeah.
We'll do our best to protect the innocent.
That's right. Or the guilty. I don't know what the real title of this podcast is going to be, but the subtitle of the podcast is How to Destroy a Company by Secretly or blatantly hating your customers. How to destroy a company by hating your customers.
I'm sure everybody knows a company that fits under that bill.
I wanted to start off with, from the Jim Collins book, How the Mighty Fall. Jim Collins gives 5 stages of company decline, and I want to run through them now just as a framework for this podcast, what we're talking about. So just very quickly, I'm just going to read the stages without any context. So stage 1 is characterized by hubris, born of success. Stage 2 is marked by undisciplined pursuit of more. Stage 3 is the peak of ascendancy and characterized by denial of risk and peril. It's the highest point that you will ever reach. Yeah. Stage 4 begins a precipitous decline with the organization grasping for salvation. He's a little wordy with
flowery,
these. A little flowery in his language. Does he get paid by word? Stage 5 is the final capitulation to being irrelevant or accepting death. Those are the 5 stages of the company decline. And in order to better illustrate these stages, as we talk through them, I will give a purely hypothetical example of a company, a completely hypothetical situation pulled from the headlines.
Any resemblance to actual company is unintended and fictitious.
That's right, and should be disregarded by everyone. I'm going to start this example with our gaming company, the Lizards and Wizards LLC gaming company, right?
Fantastic company.
It is. We make a product line called Monsters and Mayhem. It's a game.
You can play that for hours on end.
You can. And so the Lizards and Wizards LLC that we own. We own this company, and we have sold this company. We do this occasionally. We sell our companies. I don't know why we do this, but that's what we do. We have sold our company to a larger company of Evil Toys Incorporated. And Evil Toys Incorporated now owns the Lizards and Wizards LLC and all of its products and product lines.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was a hostile takeover or not, but they own it now.
Oh, it doesn't really matter. I mean, we cashed out. So
that's right, yeah.
I think in one of our previous podcast examples, like we cashed out and then I took my money and left, and you tried to stay with the company and keep the ship floating or something.
I'm stupid.
Yeah. Okay, so what happens is Evil Toys Inc. takes over Lizards and Wizards LLC and all their properties. For the first couple of years, Evil Toys Inc. is very happy with Lizards and Wizards LLC as they bring money in with a new streams of revenue that this very old school Evil Toys Inc., the majority of their products you have to go out and manufacture and then sell to stores so they can put on their shelves and stuff like that. They don't really have a product that is like a recurring stream of revenue like this, so they're very happy with their new stream of revenue for a couple of years. The owners of Lizards and Wizards LLC, who have stuck around and stayed with the company from the buyout, they understand that having a strong community, since their products are very niche in the market, they only have the Monsters and Mayhem product line, which is a game that people play, and sometimes they'll license that product out for people to make video games off of their main product, but that's their main product.
Right.
So they know that should that niche community cease to grow, there will no longer be a market for their product. So basically, they are creating and expanding the market for their product. So they are creating the product market fit that they are then turning around and selling to. So the executives at Lizards and Wizards LLC understand that, and they are full speed ahead with community building. In pursuit of that, they've created a license they've called the Open Publishing License. And under the Open Publishing License, they have allowed third-party creators, independent creators, people around the community to create and publish content for their system. Mm-hmm. Because the people running the company know that like the company's only a certain size. So there's some things that are like not worth their size, and there's some things that the community would accept, but there's not enough of them for the company to put it's just like any other product, right?
Sure.
You can develop any feature you want, but some features won't get used by a broad audience, but a very niche audience will completely go in on them. And so they create this license, and they expand the brand and they expand the revenue for the company for many years. 3%, 5%, 6% year-over-year growth. Very good.
So decent growth, yeah.
Over time, I'm going to take us forward in time a little bit. Let's say 15 years from the buyout, right? So 15 years is a good enough time where organically a lot of people will move on and stuff like that.
Sure.
Over time, the Evil Toys Inc. has said, we see this 3% growth, 5% growth, but could we be doing more? Could we be growing faster? Right? They have these Lizards and Wizards executives that talk about gaming, they talk about the community, but they don't really talk about revenue creation that often. They don't talk about reducing costs of their overhead. They don't talk about what they're going to do to double the size of the company. They don't talk about the same things that the board members at Evil Toys Inc. talk about. They don't speak the same language.
It's typical of a holding company, though, right? That hold a bunch of diverse companies.
Right.
They're always looking at the bottom line, saying, "Can we get more? Can we get more, right, out of these companies that we hold? Can we optimize our operations? Can we do this? Can we do that?" Right. We just want more out of it.
So along the way, and as people get tired of being in these arguments and back and forth, as different executives leave, they get replaced by people vetted from the holding company, and they get replaced by people who think more like the executives at Evil Toys Inc. rather than the people who originally founded and maintain the community and the products from Wizards LLC. And then over time, what you end up with is now two companies where there really is not a diversity in thought anymore. There's just kind of this drive towards financial metrics and financial measurements. Basically, the measurements about the community and growth and stuff like that are fine as long as it lines up with the financial metrics that Evil Toys Inc. cares about.
Right.
Any other measurement is either no longer valuable and isn't brought up at board meetings.
Well, not even observed, probably,
right.
At that point.
Right.
So you've got this situation where executives for Blizzards and Wizards are basically descendants from the mothership, so to speak, right?
Right.
Okay.
So slowly over time, the holding company has sort of eroded the culture and changed it and morphed it into a culture of Evil Toys Inc. Which I can't even be angry about them eroding the culture, because that of course the larger company that absorbs a smaller company is going to make the smaller company like them. I would not expect the opposite to happen.
Of course.
All right.
Yeah.
So over time, now the executives have changed, the leadership has changed in the company. This license that they put out that arguably allowed their company to flourish, to be as profitable as it is. Now the executives at Evil Toys Inc., they're saying your product line, the way that we're measuring it, it seems to be under-monetized. It seems that you aren't going out as aggressively to bring revenue into the company as you could be doing. We think you should make some changes. Maybe they give them some goals. Maybe they give them some. Maybe somebody's read a book and they give them OKRs, and their objective is increase revenue by, 20% a year for the next 5 years.
Not aggressive at all.
It's not. No. It's they should be able to do it because their brand is under-monetized. I mean, you have to think about it. Not only do they have the gaming lines, but also there's licensing that basically the company does almost nothing licensing. They just say this other person can make a movie off of our products, and they basically, the Evil Toys Inc. pays nothing out of pocket for that. So that's free money. They're like, why are we not engaged in these things? We don't understand. So they start pushing here and there, and one of the things they push on is to revoke this publishing license, because maybe they see over the past 15 years, a large community has cropped up of publishers who publish under this license, and their game systems are compatible with the Lizards and Wizards product. And now the executives from Evil Toys Inc. and also the executives from Lizards and Wizards, because maybe some of them are the same executives, right? Or worked in the same places with other executives. They start saying, hey, why did we allow these other companies to run a $2 million Kickstarter and we don't get any of that? Why are we allowing that? Because that's the way an executive thinks.
Sure, of course.
One of these, not every executive. I'm not attacking executives.
It's just these ones.
Yeah. So now there are conversations like that, and that the board meetings are getting a bit more contentious. Why are we allowing them to make $2 million off of our product name? So now the company comes out with a new license, and their intent is to retroactively revoke all content made under the previous license. They want to take a percentage of money from everyone who publishes
under the new one,
under their system, which is, let's just say it's 25%, for example. It could be any number I'm picking out of the air, but let's say 25%. Mm-hmm. Which in order for them to know that you qualify to give them to, like, let's say they don't want 25% of like every single individual person on the internet, only if you're making serious money. So if you make like $750,000, they're going to take 25% of all your revenue above your initial $750,000. And in order for them to know how much money you're making off to whether you should be paying them or not, now you have to report all your revenue to them. So there's some serious like overreach happening here, which is, admittedly, it's kind of ridiculous for me to even say, like, I threw any one of these could have been enough.
Yeah.
Right. So now there's a revolt. All the fans are up in arms, and all the creators are looking to protect their own companies and their own interests. So now there's a huge situation, big blow up. How did we get here? In this example, we've gone through a couple of the stages of how the mighty fall. So let's back up a second. Back to stage one, characterized by hubris, born of success. So the game company who was successful, I would even argue, because they were bought by Evil Toys Incorporated because they were so successful. And then the early publishing of the license that allowed the community to grow up and for them to be successful was because they were allowed to build a community in the way that they thought that they needed to build a community.
Yeah, definitely they experienced some success there, right, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
So that was stage one.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened after that?
I would argue that all of the changes in leadership over time happened potentially in stage one, maybe in stage two. So stage one, characterized by hubris, born of success. We can't fail.
Sure.
Right? We got all these competitors, but none of them matter because we're the big dog. What we say matters, right? Maybe you have some leadership introduced at this point that kind of that they don't need evidence-based management. They know where the money is going to be. We got to get into movies. We got to get into this. We got to get into streaming.
Right.
We got to extend the brand into this. Just do what I say. Stage two is marked by undisciplined pursuit of more. Maybe stage two work. So undisciplined pursuit of more here looks like I need more revenue out of this company. So how do I get more revenue? The simplistic MBA approach here is I'm gonna fire some people, cut costs, trim costs, produce more product, and charge more for that product. That would be the simple way.
Sure.
Right? That would be the simple way at Lizards and Wizards LLC. But at the Evil Toys Inc. level, they don't necessarily care how the gaming company is bringing in more revenue. They will just come out and say, listen, just through the financial numbers and through the financial metrics we are tracking, it seems that this is your bottom line of what it costs to pay all the employees. This is how much it costs to print your books or whatever. So basically, this is your inventory cost. This is your labor cost. Yeah. And this is what it costs per unit or whatever. Why don't you start raising prices until the market pushes back and then you know what your new price point is going to be? Or a recession rolls around and they say, look, all the companies are raising prices now. Why don't you raise prices too? It won't be noticed because everyone's doing it now.
Yeah. The other factor might be that we go into a global pandemic and they say, well, people are at home now. They're playing more games.
Yeah.
Just raise your prices.
Yeah.
So there are many, many factors there.
Yeah. Well, it's a shame when all those factors collide and coincide with a global recession. You happen to raise your prices because you think your customers can not be price sensitive or whatever. And then you do that in the same month as a global recession really kicks in.
Right.
What a terrible characterized by hubris, born of success. Right. We can raise our prices. Our customers aren't going to complain. Where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? We've got all the great products. Where are they going to go?
Right.
And then the second is undisciplined pursuit of more. Why raise your price? Why 20% growth a year for 5 years? Why do you need that? Why is 10% not enough?
Yeah, I agree. I think the undisciplined may also be the fact that they say, we're just going to come out with a new license. We're going to revoke the old one, stop it all working, right? And then we're going to charge people from the new one onwards, right? Undisciplined also encompasses the fact that they say, we're going to take a cut of everybody who makes more than a certain number in revenue, no less, not profits, in revenue,
right? Which
is crazy, right? That's undisciplined.
Well, also, it's the peak of Ascendency of his stage 3. Characterized by denial of risk and peril. I would have to think that any normal person that works at the gaming company, maybe somebody who works on a product line or maybe somebody who works in their digital tools or whatever, when they see stuff like this being mandated down from not even the top, the top of the top, the holding company basically, I wouldn't expect any serious product manager to be sticking around for these kind of dictates. I mean, this is feature factory type of work.
Yeah, they're going to be disappearing like rats off a ship.
Yeah. I would also argue if all of your third-party publishers flee your company as well, and all of these bets, this bet with the license and the bet with expanding into other areas or whatever, all those bets now are going to turn up as losses because your community is basically going elsewhere.
Yeah.
AKA, I say your community. What I really mean is your customers. So in this step, he's saying the denial of risk and peril. I would characterize denial of risk and peril as we don't need to test that idea. We don't need to check that with our customers. We don't need to worry about how our customers are going to take this.
It's a solid customer base. We have so many, right? They've used our old version of our publishing license. They'll use the new one.
Yeah.
Where are they going to go?
Yeah. Stage 4, the precipitous decline with the organization grasping for salvation. And then stage 5, final capitulation. It would be way too early to call either one of these. So I'm not going to go off. But we can take these stages and we can call out parallels to other organizations. Stage 1 characterized by hubris, born of success. In the book, he talks about a chain of department stores. he talks about the Zayre's department store, which was bought out by the Ames department. I think Zayre's was a regional department stores. I think Ames was like up and down the East Coast. Like I can't remember where Ames where it was. I know they were in the South, but I don't remember where else they were. That example of the Zayre's company was fine with small incremental growth and staying in areas. I think in the book, I think he says that Zayre's business model was a lot like Walmart's business model, but they got bought out by the Ames department store, and the Ames department store's corporate goals were growth for the sake of growth. And in the book, he goes through some great examples of them changing out their CEO and trying not to fail, as I believe stages 3 through 5 happened very quickly for them. He goes through detailing how they were basically grasping for whatever they could do to not go out of business, and in the end, it didn't really matter.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So the amount of time it takes for an organization to go through these stages is completely variable, right? It's not even like, okay, we're going to just grasp for air for a while.
Right.
You can go straight from 2 very quickly to 4 where you need CPR, and then you don't get CPR in time, and inevitably death happens.
The interesting part of this is how quickly you go from 1 to 3, because the hubris born of success, and then the peak ascendancy, like the highest that your stock will ever be. You know what I mean? The most stores that you'll ever have open, that kind of stuff. Like those two go very well together.
Yeah.
Because you could be ignoring your competitors and your stock will still be going up and up and up. It's funny that there is a complete stage in between this hubris and the highest peak that your company will reach. It's funny there's a whole step in the middle of that, because you would think that those two would be connected. I have the executives who have the hubris, and they don't care what the customer thinks, and they don't care what the market trends, and they don't care about analytics. They only care about getting their way. And then it still takes a while for your company to hit its peak before the decline starts. That was super interesting to me about this book.
That is interesting. Yeah, I wonder how long that is if you were to kind of look at a broad range of companies.
I'd have to go back to the book. He does give time ranges in every single one of these. He gives time ranges in the book. I wish I could remember off the top of my head, but I can't. I would expect anybody listening to this, especially anyone in the Agile field, the example they would think of immediately would probably be Blockbuster.
Right.
Because Blockbuster had the chance to buy Netflix. So that was that risk and peril, that denial of risk and peril. Hey, you want to buy this company? No, that company is ridiculous. That's right. What will we ever do with that?
We need in-person brick and mortar stores. We don't need people to be mailing out DVDs.
Well, even Blockbuster near the end, they tried to match Netflix subscription model.
Sure.
And it just didn't. It was too late.
Too little, too late. Yeah.
And that was stage 4. And I think he outlines that in the book.
That last stage isn't just death, which is interesting. It's capitulation to irrelevance. Irrelevance could be how you describe, say, Sears now, right? In the market space, they're really not relevant anymore, right, even though they've been relegated, or they are relegated themselves to just like an online presence.
It's interesting, and it's extremely short. The book is extremely short. We kind of talked through the stages. We kind of talked through this theoretical gaming company and their challenges. I had a CEO one time that used to say, when you optimize for one group, you sub-optimize for another group. And I'm like, is that really true? I don't even know if that's really true. But I can apply that to this case and think it actually is sort of true by changing the wording slightly and saying, when you optimize your company for anything other than the customer, then you sub-optimize for the customer. That's about the only...
Sub-optimize it for yourself,
yeah,
too.
Pretty much. You sub-optimize it for everybody. Because I think that is clearly what's happening here. They're sub-optimizing their company because their holding company is telling them, make the financial numbers look better.
Yeah.
That's it.
Corporate greed, essentially.
Well, you can say it's corporate greed, but there'll always be people they're like, well, the financial numbers are all that matters. Although I would argue like 20% year over year is your expectation, because that's pretty unreasonable.
It is. Yeah, that's very aggressive.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just aggressive. It's
crazy.
It's unreasonable. It's go find the average amount that normal companies of their size and their market segment or whatever increase, and then tell me what the average is, and then whatever, shoot for 2% above the average, but it's not going to be 20%.
No.
No,
I agree.
Most companies are 3% year over year, and that's great. 5%, and they're doing backflips. 20%.
Yeah, that's very, very ambitious, to put it mildly. But you look at these executives that are there with these companies that reach the 5th stage. They're incented to do something, not necessarily for the longevity of the company or for the benefit of the customers or anything like that. I'm sure whatever metrics they're incented by, they must be doing okay, because you don't see any of those guys filing for unemployment, right? I mean, they collect their whatever bonuses, etc., and they move to the next opportunity.
Yeah, well, that again, we're talking about stuff that Deming warned about. Yet on another podcast is the people in leadership positions, like they can't be coming in and staying for 18 months, 2 years, or whatever, and then moving out. That's not enough time to make meaningful change, deep, impactful change. It's also the Amazon. We didn't even talk about Amazon displacing brick and mortar stores. We didn't even talk about that, because that should be outlined by these steps as well. People would rather stay at home. People would rather do whatever. You know, people only want one thing. They want it delivered to them. They're willing to pay a little more so they don't have to go out or whatever, or knowing that they got a cheaper price or whatever it is.
Right.
I'm getting depressed. Look, it's all dark behind me now. Like, let's fix these problems. I would argue that fixing the problem, like, we're going to start right at the top, right? We're going to start right at the top. Evil Toys Inc., okay? Their bonus plans now are not going to be quarter to quarter anymore. We're going to solve that right away. Any bonus they get is going to be company stock. It's not going to be a check, and it's not going to be dependent quarter to quarter. So we're going to get rid of that for the holding company. The second, now we're going to step a level down into the game company and say what can they actually do to expand their revenue. Here I am now, back in my expertise lane. If you're going to expand revenue, we have one product, Monsters and Mayhem. That's our product. People come play our game. There's a couple different ways to play our game. They can play our game online. They can play our game at a table, all get together, or they can play a video game that's based on our game. Video games licensing, we already talked about that. People know how to make video games. That should be a stream of revenue. We'll put that over here. We'll have a product manager for licenses to make sure that when people make video games and stuff, they suit our brand and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
No problem. One person manages that, right? Product manager, licensing. We're going to break down our customer base. Look at us focusing on customers, right? Customers who play video games, customers who play the game at the table, customers who play the game on like a virtual version.
So you're stratifying customers now.
I am
classifying them at least.
I am. I'm breaking up my products by the way that the customers consume them.
Yep.
So the first thing I would do is I would say, okay, well, the people that want to meet at the table, we're going to have a person. You're going to be the expert on those people. You're going to run the product line for people who want to meet at the table. People who do this stuff online. Look, you might argue like, oh, well, it's basically the same thing. You're playing the same thing. It's all the same rules, except the technology is different. One has no technology.
Right.
One has a lot of technology, or maybe a little bit of technology or whatever. Okay, fine. Then you guys seem to have a very similar product with very probably different roadmaps, but a lot of your stuff probably intersects. Should be easy. Work together, plan together.
Work together, plan together, win together.
Yeah. I kind of see this as like group product manager type of stuff where maybe there's one product manager over these 3 different areas. And if the third-party publishing is such a problem, or the community or whatever is such a problem, then maybe we get somebody who only serves all of the third-party people putting out our license to make sure that all the stuff that they're writing is in, or tracking trends with what they're, because there's nothing saying that we can't see something that a third-party publisher is doing and say, that's really good. We're going to make a version of that. Slightly different, but we're going to make a version of that.
Yeah.
So that when you see these $2 million Kickstarters or whatever using your brand, you don't say, how can we allow? You can say, how can we piggyback on the success of that and do something where we can make money off of that too?
Absolutely.
So now I've got the creators over here that are creating for my system. I've got a product manager for that. I've got a product manager each for the different ways people play the game. I've got a product manager for video gaming and licensing, stuff like that. Maybe I want to break into movies and TV and stuff like that, and I need another person from that business who knows the movies and TV and so, you know what I mean, whatever, movies. Let's just say movies. I don't know anything about making movies. I work at Evil Toys Inc. If you want to print off a board game, I know how to do that.
Right.
If you want to write a game that people play at home, I know how to do that. I don't know anything about producing movies. So I need somebody from the movie industry who also enjoys my products to bridge that. So, you know what I mean? So, like, again, the moviegoer is a different audience. So I've broken down by customer, almost by customer persona that you probably can get deeper. Like for example, for Monsters and Mayhem, here's this new thing that helps you run a game. It tells you what to do or whatever. Most of the players don't care.
Right.
They just want to show up and throw dice at each other and eat pizza, right? And drink Mountain Dew. I did a Mountain Dew. They're not going to buy that product. So,
Right, absolutely.
but the person running the game is going to buy that product. So maybe now I subdivide the audience even further to say, okay, these are the products for the people running. These are the products for the people playing. Maybe the difference between the in-person experience and the digital experience. So maybe it subdivides into like 4 categories. I don't know how granular to get. The point is I would have to put signal out and try to feel out those metrics to figure out where my customers are and where they want to buy.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is you're really examining your customer base and then segmenting that down to the degree it needs to be, right? A product focus is what I heard as well, right? As opposed to just a blatant double the company in 5 years, right? That kind of thing. that doesn't work.
Well,
So
it's not even doubling the company. That was the original goal. It was doubling the revenue. Revenue. So again, when I hear double the revenue, I'm like, well, just double the amount of products you put out and fire half the employees
and raise the prices.
Like you cut your costs to run the business in half. You've doubled the money that's coming in, and you've made sure that because you're putting out more product, you made sure that you're going to overshoot that number. You know, it's like the old project management, like, how long is it going to take? Well, I'll just tell you twice as long as I think it's going to take, and then we'll use that buffer of twice as long. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah.
No. So, like, firing everyone is only half of it. That gets you half ahead. Doubling the prices gets you half ahead, and then you have a little extra budget.
Padding
a little padding. But again, what does that get you?
Right.
I mean, it burns out all your employees, I guess.
You lose good people very quickly. So in turning this whole thing around, right, at Evil Toys as well as Lizards and Wizards, the leadership have to have that mentality that we're going to focus on our customers, right? Which is kind of a 180 from before, which we started off the podcast by saying how to basically die a quick death by hating your customers.
Right. So you need to bring people in that actually care about servicing the customer.
Yeah.
You can't fake being obsessed with the customer. This is an Amazon thing. You can't fake being like Jeffrey Bezos. He shows his head again on a podcast. You can't fake this. You can't fake empathy in this case. You've got to have it. You can drive out empathy pretty easily by just optimizing for metrics that you don't care about empathy. None of these metrics are based on anything empathetic or anything that requires empathy. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, well, hopefully Evil Toys Inc. can pull it off and have a cultural shift and revolution, or go down the route of irrelevancy.
Or die a death. But probably what would happen in this scenario in real life would be, at some point, those bean counters over at Evil Toys Inc. will just say, we're just not getting what we need out of Lizards and Wizards, so we're just going to sell it. Break up the company. Do an Al Dunlap.
That would be stage 4. I would think. Stage 4 here would be like GE cutting off entire swaths of its organization and selling it to try to get the capital to keep the company running to make payroll, basically, while it tries to figure out how to pull out of this death spiral.
Yeah.
You know?
Sunbeam is another example. Philips. Yeah, there are quite a few companies that basically do this, right? Just trying to stay on life support.
Yeah. The software development equivalent of this is like firing everyone and offshoring entire products. You know, I've seen that a lot too, which is I feel it's been rolled back, or maybe I just don't associate with those companies. I don't know which one it is, but I feel like the need to offshore is kind of rolled back as well. But that is part of this stage 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm trying to think of whether I've actually fixed the problem. So I've changed corporate incentives for both the holding company and the gaming company. I guess I didn't say that I changed corporate incentives. I said I changed corporate incentives at Evil Toys Company, but I didn't say that I changed corporate incentives at Lizards and Wizards LLC, but I did. You get company long-term stock, and you don't get a big bonus anymore, and you don't get Silicon Valley pay anymore.
Right.
You get no, and that right there will stop our revolving door of ex-Microsoft, Amazon employee. It'll stop that revolving door of people with the same mindset just being brought in and cycling in and out, getting their bonuses for 2 years and then cycling out.
And it's not just individuals here, right? People who come in that way bring in their posse with them typically. So they know people they've worked with that they trust, so they're going to bring in their right-hand, left-hand people. Yeah. So this is actually quite significant. If you stop that revolving door, you should see a pretty good turnaround, like pretty quickly, at least an effect, very quickly. It'll be a marked effect.
I almost shudder to ask, would somebody from Evil Toys Inc. listens to this podcast? No, first of all, never going to happen. But people from a holding company looking for advice on how to actually improve, never going to happen. But if they actually listen to the podcast and take all of that, you should segment your products this way, and you should figure out who your personas are and start breaking up your product lines by who they're servicing, and actually running surveys with those customers and figuring out why they're not happy, and actually talking to them, talking to your customers. I almost shudder to say, can you keep this Taylorist holding company management concepts that these people have brought in and use this new sort of way of managing products and focusing on you? I don't think those two worlds are compatible.
I agree with you. I don't think they are. I think people's mindsets are fixed on certain things at the holding company level. Mm-hmm. And the minute those executives from Lizards and Wizards say, here are some statistics around our customer base, right? Don't want to know about that. right?
Yeah.
Have we doubled our revenue? Have we increased it by, whatever it is that they want, right? That mindset is what got them into trouble. And unless that changes, they're going to stay in trouble.
Oh, the old fixed mindset again. Here it is.
One more time. It rears its head.
Fixed mindset. Yeah, it's hard to have a growth mindset when you're living in a culture where all your incentives are basically the opposite of that.
That's it. That's the bottom line on that. Lizards and wizards.
Yep. Oh,
No dragons were slayed in the making of this podcast.
They definitely were not. Like we're a drop in the bucket of the rage connected to this podcast. You're welcome, Lizards and Wizards and Evil Toys Inc. We've solved all your problems. All you got to do is change your culture and actually care about your customers and not try to just squeeze out all the money. We didn't even talk about digital products or buying other companies to their digital products,
right.
which they still don't do, which is ridiculous. Because had they done that when they originally wanted to do it back in like 2007 or something like that, but writing software is hard, so they didn't do it, which is why they brought all these Microsoft people in the first place, by the way. That's how the Microsoft people got a foothold in the culture.
Right.
They brought in a bunch of ex-Microsoft people to build them software to have a digital experience. So I was talking about playing at the tabletop versus playing digital, to build them a digital experience, and then all those people just failed. So, of course, what do you do when you're leadership and you fail at the company? You get promoted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Promoted to your highest level of incompetence.
That's right.
Well, folks, thank you for staying with us so far. And let us know what you think of this podcast down in the comments section. Subscribe and like for more goodness come.
Whatever you think of the podcast, we reserve the right to republish your comments and take all your revenue. Oh, boy. What a debacle.